picking off liberal propaganda like an enemy of the Clintons.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Patriotically Correct Radio with Stu and Rich.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Mojo 50 Radio.
Welcome inside to PC Radio, the Patriotically Correct Radio Show. Good afternoon. My name is Stu Peters. Normally would be alongside Richard Leonard. Richard had some personal things come up. He's not able to be here for today's show, at least during this first segment, which is brought to you by Johnson Jewelers. Johnson Jewelers located in Woodbury, Minnesota. However, you can take advantage of the great Johnson Jewelers service by just visiting johnsonjewelers.com. Something great about Johnson Jewelers that I want to tell you about is that most everything that they do is custom. So even if you go, if you're lucky enough to live near Johnson Jewelers in Woodbury, Minnesota, or in the surrounding Twin Cities metropolitan area, then you can go into Johnson Jewelers and look in their cases. Now, they have beautiful jewelry in their cases, most of which has been custom made right there at Johnson Jewelers. But if you have that stone from Grandpa or that pendant from Grandma that they left behind for you, and you don't know what to do with it. You've got it shoved in some safety deposit box somewhere, or you've got it shoved under your pillow, or it's in the gun safe downstairs with all of the guns that are protected by 2A here in the United States that Donald Trump is fervently fighting to keep for you. Instead, you might want to wear this in the form of a bracelet, or maybe around your neck, or on a ring. Johnson Jewelers can make that happen for you. Just visit them online, johnsonjewelers.com, johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com. Shadow banning in the United States on social media is something that Twitter, Facebook, Instagram have been able to get away with. Why? Because they are private companies. Private companies can do essentially whatever they want to do. Many have called for restrictions to be placed on these places because as time has evolved, social media has become so huge. People rely on it, literally spending hours every single day on their smartphones, their iPhones, their Androids, their tablets, their computers on social media. It's a place where people originally had gone to get news and communicate with their loved ones. I use social media to dig for information, just as you probably do. I also use social media to keep long-distant relatives in touch with what it is, the goings-on in the Peters family. What we're doing yesterday was my daughter's second birthday. Reagan turned 2 yesterday. And so, of course, pictures and videos and things like that we can share with people. Family that I have in Florida, family that we have all over the country. My wife has family that's extended in California, and so on and so forth. So we're able to effectively share that information. It's really nice. However, if you lean a particular direction in politics or your political viewpoints seem to be something that don't jive with the creators of said media platform, you can be shadow banned or ghost banned. It's a real thing. What this essentially means is that your message or your posts or your comments won't be seen by the masses. There is a person by the name of Dylan Wheeler in Minnesota who's from the Duluth area who had a Twitter page with millions of followers educating liberals or educating for libs, education for libs. I guess I don't know exactly which one it is. I actually met Mr. Wheeler personally prior to a Trump campaign rally here in Minneapolis. Prior to him going on stage, I had dinner with Mr. Wheeler along with a couple of police officers that I'm friends with who were providing a security detail at that event. Great event. It was a wonderful deal, and I met Mr. Wheeler. Anyways, the QAnon movement started coming out, this QAnonymous deal. And I've actually been accused of being a part of this QAnon. I'm actually not well versed in QAnon, and I will study it to try to get more information on that. But essentially what they are framed as is a radical group of conservatives. And I can assure you that I'm no part of any movement. The only movement that I'm a part of is myself, my own independent and free thinking, and my particular ideals when it comes to my viewpoints that I then in turn teach my kids. I'm a huge proponent of free speech, and I will support protests all day long, especially if it means that it's a peaceful protest. If these protests are actually protests and they're against large government, I am not a fan of large government myself, which is what tends to give me my conservative thinking, which is shrinking or smaller government, tax breaks for middle-class America, freedom and individual liberty, the freedom of speech, the Second Amendment right to bear arms, etc., and so on and so forth. I'm a pro-life person. I believe that every child has the right to be born, and that I believe that there are only certain exceptions in that, where possibly forcible rape, I would say, could be one of those examples, or potentially incest, things like that. If the baby legitimately, by a medical doctor, doesn't have a chance to live after birth, or will only live for a month or two, or will have some sort of a disease that, will inhibit this child from having any quality of life, I think should be a consideration as well. I went off on a rant there, going back to the social media doxing, or the shadow banning, if you will. Doxing is a term that has recently become famous. Now, doxing, what that means is that on social media, if I don't agree with you, I can find your local information, your phone number, your private email address, links to your other private social media accounts, even your physical home address, and then expose those things on Facebook to a group of radicals that oppose you so that you may be harassed. It's a real thing. It's going on with political elected representatives. It's going on with chiefs of police. It's going on with police command staff and officers themselves. It's going on with radio show hosts, television show hosts like Tucker Carlson on the Fox News channel. And it's a very scary and real threat to people in America. If you have a viewpoint that somebody on the other side of the viewpoint doesn't agree with, and that person happens to be radicalized, your life could potentially be in danger. Your safety, the safety of your family, and the safety of your children. These are the tactics that mainstream media then gets behind, the fear tactic of control and power, which we all know that the left excuse me on that. I just received some news here. It looks like, and we're going to check into this, effective immediately, Trump campaign activities in Minnesota are postponed. There's been a shooting, reportedly at the campaign headquarters. One report is saying one person is dead, too soon to know details. This is coming from a person that is not inside of, but is firsthand connected to the Trump campaign. This is a very trustworthy source. We'll obviously give you more of that. That's very disturbing as some of this unfolds, and as information comes into Patriotically Correct Radio, we'll try to update you. Prayers for everybody involved there. And if this is true, this is actually kind of exactly what it is that we're talking about. In the climate of the streets of America today, becoming physically violent or deadly for people who oppose a certain political ideology. Again, Trump campaign activities in Minnesota are immediately postponed. There's reportedly been a shooting at the campaign headquarters. One person, according to one report, is dead. Too soon to know details. Very disturbing. Your viewpoints can be suppressed, which has led to a new conservative platform called Parler, which is now out there, which essentially becomes an echo chamber for conservatives or right-leaning Republicans who have essentially the same viewpoints as I do. I become a little bit more libertarian when it comes to, for example, gay people, homosexuals. I'm a supporter of the gay community, and I don't have any issues with the gay community, whereas a lot of conservatives are pegged as being anti-gay or homophobic, and for me, that's just not true. I think it's not even news to be gay anymore. It's almost actually trendy to become gay. We have spoken to several people on our program who are homosexual or who have transgender identities and so on and so forth. I don't have an issue with that, as long as you're not going to try to forcefully push your agenda down my throat. Don't try to make me gay, because that's not going to happen. That's not me. No problems with it if you are, and by all means. So I believe that having washed or watered down conservative principles kind of makes me more along the lines of libertarian. I would never forcefully push my agenda down other people's throat. My agenda specifically is to be a relentless seeker of truth and facts. And to try to deliver those facts in regular conversation today becomes very difficult for people who are having these conversations, whether be it in the street or at a family gathering or especially at a public event. Protesters have now become violent criminal thugs, and these violent criminal thugs and these gatherings that break out into violence or burning or looting or assault are still referred to by politicians on the radical left and by the mainstream media as being peaceful protests. If violence breaks out, they say it's a peaceful protest that escalated into violence, rather than calling it an unlawful gathering or calling it an unlawful assembly or calling it what it is, the incitement of riot, a felony criminal crime for which somebody can be charged and jailed. They won't do that. They won't go there with you because the perception that the media wants you to have, which then trickles into social media, is that you are the problem. If you are an American-loving, patriotic, conservative, mostly, you are the problem in America today. Especially if you are a white conservative American. You are racist, and you will believe this. And if you don't believe this, we will forcefully bring you to your knees, quite literally, in public, with a mob of people at our disposal, and make you go to your knees and raise your fist in solidarity with a political movement called Black Lives Matter. NFL football fields are now decorated with the political group's logo. You can't go anywhere in professional sports without seeing the hashtag, which is why I chose not to watch on Sunday, which is why I chose not to watch last evening, which is why I choose not to watch. When men, and I use the term loosely, are being paid millions of dollars to play a child's game in the only country on the face of the planet that will allow such to happen. By the way, men who a lot of them are foreign nationals or immigrants from other countries. Baseball, same thing. Soccer, same thing. Get paid basketball. The NBA is a complete joke. I've often joked with Richard, and it's not really a joke. For those of you who know us, we do fugitive apprehension in the private sector and have become a very prolific and high energy, very effective apprehension agency in search of violent offenders. I've often joked with Richard that if NBA players couldn't shoot a basketball, they'd be running from us. It's not really a joke. They're a bunch of criminals. And they prove it themselves. Don't take my word for it. Read the news. If you believe the news. You can't go anywhere without this agenda of this political group being shoved down your throat. And if you don't accept it, you are the enemy. You're a threat. You'll be discounted as a bigot, a phobic of some kind, a misogynist, a sexist, a racist. And so going back to my original point, this is what happens then on social media. On social media, if you have an opinion like mine, I could be silenced. I could be ghost banned or shadow banned. Where when I tweet something, you may not see it. Facebook has new algorithms and new policies, new community standards that are rolling out on October 1. I haven't gotten into them very deeply. I'm not educated as to exactly what they are. I will get that information prior to October 1. We have about 15 days to do that. And then we will bring it to you here on PC Radio as to exactly what it is. But if you did notice quietly in the last couple of weeks, Facebook did do one thing. Test this out on your own. They made it impossible for you to share through Messenger anything with over 5 people. So, for example, if I wanted to share today's afternoon broadcast this evening with a group of people, I would be limited to sharing that with 5 people. So we're not going to ban you per se. We're not going to tell you that you're not allowed to say this. We're only going to allow you to communicate with 5 people. This is socialism. This is fascism. This is suppression. And the same thing is happening on the streets, only more violently. There are confirmed reports that millions of people are vacating from social media or vacating from the media, the mainstream media in itself, and looking for alternative sources of media for their information. Our show would be an example of that. I will unapologetically seek the truth. I will always ask the hard questions, no matter what side of the aisle a guest is from, and I will always, I will never apologize for asking a tough question or calling somebody out if I feel like they're being less than truthful, not telling the whole story, being dishonest purposefully or by accident. I will never apologize for that. And someday it may cost me my life. It's terrible to think that that's a time that we're in here in the United States, but it's true. And it's proven by the way mainstream media will blatantly, shamelessly cover for criminals. We know that people like Hillary Clinton have major skeletons in their closet. She's criminally complicit in an act in Benghazi, for example. She used bleach and hammers to destroy cell phones. 24 people in the Mueller investigation on the Mueller team have now said to have accidentally, air quotes, accidentally deleted all of the data and wiped clean their phones. What about the stories of Ilhan Omar, for example? During her campaign, Omar was accused of marrying her brother for the purpose of committing immigration fraud when it was revealed that she was legally married to 2 people at the same time, and new documents from North Dakota State University and archives of social media posts from her brother show that he's an openly homosexual man, strongly suggest that Ilhan Omar committed student loan fraud through her fraudulent marriage with Elmi, believed to be her biological brother. On a marriage certificate dated February 12, 2009, it says that Ilhan Abdullahi Omar married a man by the name of Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi in Hennepin County, Minnesota. This is public information, who she herself identified as a British citizen. On another application dated September 30th, 2002, Omar applied for a marriage license in Minnesota to marry the father of her children, Ahmed Hersey, otherwise known as Ahmed Aden. As both marriage license applications filled out by Omar reveal, both her legal husband and her cultural husband have the same first name, Ahmed. Ilhan Omar's marriage license application with Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi in 2009 and the one from 2002 can be found on the Facebook pages of the Patriotically Correct radio page if you're allowed to see it. At the time of her marriage to Elmi, Omar was said to be attending North Dakota State University with Elmi. According to Christopher Wilson, the chief of staff at the office of the president at NDSU, Elmi attended NDSU as a student of art from the fall of 2010 until the spring of 2012. In an email, Wilson said that Omar graduated in 2011, which would mean that Elmi stayed in North Dakota for a full year after Omar, who was then his legal on-paper wife, graduated. We will also post that email on the Facebook page of the Patriotically Correct radio show. In previous statements, Omar has said insinuations that Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi is my brother are absurd and offensive. I believe that we have a Fox News or a Fox 9 local from here in Minneapolis statement that we will also then put up here as well. We're going to put all of this documentation up, and we're going to give you the truth. Now, chances are that independent fact checkers from Facebook will rule this posting as mostly false or partially false, and that they will then censor it and keep you from seeing it. We're going to do our best, and if we can't do it there, we will put it up on our website at thepcradioshow.com. That's thepcradioshow.com. Omar said that she and Elmi divorced in their faith tradition in 2011, and that he then moved back to England immediately after. In 2016, she said she was in the process of getting legally divorced from Elmi, and in that statement, Omar confirmed that she's currently married in her faith tradition to Hersey, her cultural husband, and the couple is raising their family, which includes 3 children together. But Instagram pictures from Elmi's social media accounts show that he frequents homosexual and transgender events in London. Elmi's Instagram also has multiple transgender and gay references, indicating that he's not a straight man, and thus any marriage to a woman, especially Ilhan Omar, would be entirely fraudulent, as it's clear he's gay. In one picture, Ahmed Elmi tagged himself with a group of homosexual men dressed in drag inside of Heaven nightclub in London. Heaven is a famous gay club in London. So why would a straight Muslim man who's married to a woman be partying inside of a nightclub with other gay men? In a 2016 statement, which Omar provided to Fox 9 in Minnesota, she said she divorced Elmi in 2011 and that he moved back to England. But hold on a minute. The email correspondence from NDSU proves Omar's statement is a lie because Elmi was a student at NDSU from 2010 to 2012. The media will never tell you these things. They'll never bring you this. They will unapologetically get into bed with Ilhan Omar, unlike Elmi, who won't get into bed with her because he's gay, and they will cover for her. So this begs the question, was Omar's marriage with Elmi an act of immigration and student loan fraud, intended to aid Elmi and Omar in the process of getting student loans? Or perhaps a student visa for Elmi? If he's gay, why did she marry? Again, air quotes. Why did she marry him? And was he a homosexual before or only after he and Omar, quote, divorced? The fact that Elmi is a gay guy doesn't bother me, but it sure does explain why Omar's children are not with her brother Elmi, but with her other husband, Ahmed Hersey. Why would Omar say that she divorced Elmi in 2011 and that he moved back to England if they were still documented as being married in 2012 while he was still in the United States attending an American university? Why would Omar marry a homosexual man? Elmi's gay. So why would Omar marry him? He wouldn't procreate because he wouldn't have sex with her. He's gay. The answer is immigration fraud. The answer is student loan fraud. The answer is election fraud. There are ways to get around the media. There are ways to get around the social media thing, which, by the way, I would give a very short amount of time before Twitter completely goes away or is controlled by the very radicals like Omar that are now being elected as representatives in the United States Congress. There is an app called the OpsLens app. This show is broadcast live on the OpsLens app every day at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Download it. OPSLENS. The great thing about the OpsLens app not only is that you can see shows like this, or the Matt Locke Show, or Rocky Stucci's Situation Room, but also there are life health answers on this. Everything that you would have originally have gone to, say, Facebook or Twitter for can be found here, only it can't be deleted and information will not be suppressed. You can also interact using the OpsLens app by being part of the Truth Brigade, as Ron Hammond would say. Being citizen journalists, something that's going on in your city that you know is not getting attention by the media, you can get out by using the OpsLens app, by uploading your story, and then using, for example, the PC radio icon to upload that story. I will personally see it, and then I will air your story here on Patriotically Correct Radio. For example, if you have video footage of a riot that the media wants to call a protest, we know the difference. You know the difference. So go download it right now. That's OPSLENS, the OpsLens app. We're broadcasting live there, and more of PC Radio coming back to the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio right after this. Don't go anywhere. My name is Stu. More PC Radio straight ahead.
We will force votes.
We will not stop.
Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f?
Impeachment.
This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
That's a nice middle section you have there.
Yeah, I'm standing up because I have to poop really bad.
Oh my God.
So you're going to have poop stains?
I might. I just might.
It looks like you're expecting. It actually comes to a point.
He's doing cartwheels in there.
Stewie and Richie. PC Radio. Broadcasting live on the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Welcome back into the second half of PC Radio, the Patriotically Correct Radio Show, brought to you by Johnson Jewelers and American Pride Roasters Coffee. Richard now coming from our downtown Minneapolis Nicollet Mall cam, and me still broadcasting live above everybody, which is what I've been told that I should do. Put myself on a pedestal, much like we do something else in our lives, and you know what I'm talking about, and you guys out there know what I'm talking about. Don't put it on the pedestal, fellas. Don't do it. You have to resist the temptation. Richard, I told our listeners in the first half that something has happened here, and that it looks like, and this is a report that comes from a party that is closely connected and directly tied to the Trump campaign. Trump campaign activities in Minnesota are immediately postponed. There's been a shooting reportedly at campaign headquarters. One report saying the person is dead. Too soon to know details. You text me back and said, wow, that's effed up, and here's where the revolution starts. Explain.
Well, I mean, I guess much like many other things, we don't know all the details yet. But I would assume that it's probably some anti-Trump, anti-racism BS going on, and
right, because he's a racist for sure.
Yeah, and now you've taken up arms. You've taken up arms against a campaign or a one group of people. And as we've been seeing all around this country with the boat parades and the car parades and the bikers and the veterans for Trump and the women's for Trump and all this stuff,
right?
That's a really bad move.
Cops for Trump.
If in fact it was the opposite side, folks are going to be pissed, especially if it was a campaign staff, or who knows who it was and why they are dead. But this may be the start of a really horrible, bloody revolution.
We have talked about the one thing that it's going to take for the quiet people, the people who are, the guys that are just, hey, don't let me get involved with this shit, because when I do, it's going to hit the fan. And these are the guys
who want to just be left alone.
They just want to be left alone. A lot of veterans, a lot of current working police officers, I think, and a lot of current military people would say, no, this is not going to happen, and would become violently involved. And the reason why I say that is not to incite said violence. I'm not saying that I propone violence, but certainly we're not going to die worthless piles of shit not defending ourselves and not defending this country. In some way, shape, or form, we're patriots. You've proven it through your military service, okay? And there is America-loving people that tend to lean like Democratic, for example. Because I don't want to put Democrats in a box where I claim that Democrats don't love America. We've discussed that. We know there are a lot of very good Democrats out there. But when you start shooting up Trump campaign headquarters, allegedly, if that's what indeed did occur, and if we get it here during the next half hour, we will bring it to you on PC Radio. We'll tell you exactly what's going on. But if that's what early reports are saying from an inside source to PC Radio, is that that's what happened. And if that is indeed what happened, this just may be it. We discussed potentially that the 30 street gangs in Chicago who had vowed to pick up arms and shoot and gun down any police officer who was publicly displaying or had his firearm out in public would be immediately gunned down. We thought maybe that would be it. When somebody just blatantly in broad daylight shoots a cop simply for having his weapon out, that's going to spark a lot of rage and a lot of problems on the streets of America. Richard, joining us late here in the program today, just in the second half, has some personal issues going on. We want to assure you everything is okay. There's no problems here. You do look like you just went through a washing machine and then a dryer and were pulled out a little bit early.
Rough day.
I'd rather have you here like that than absent. Okay, just so you know.
Well, I appreciate that.
And so would all of our listeners. You do have a quite a growing fan base. And I get emails all the time. The black guy needs to talk more. And okay, so hey, I mean, you have the floor anytime you want it. Don't let me filibuster this thing by any means.
Well, I did want to touch on something today. Because I was feeling some type of way. And so with all the shit going on in our country, even in our own communities and beyond to the outreaches of our borders, I had a pretty profound experience yesterday that I never saw coming. My old man was here. He was in town. And I went to meet with him at my aunt's house. And the one thing that my father has always talked to me about and always told me about, even as a kid up until now, he says it all the time. And I roll my eyes and go, yeah, all right, Pops, whatever. And he said, if you never remember or give a shit about anything, he said, don't ever forget where you came from. And as I was sitting around my aunt's house yesterday, she made some soup, which I tried to get her to go live on Facebook because she likes to do her cooking videos.
Love when she does that, Aunt Shelley. Yes.
But she's apparently she's very shy now because we've told her that we like her videos.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, right. She came out from the back room and she had all these extremely old things that were from my great grandfather, my great uncle, my grandfather, all their military paperwork and some of their awards and parts of their uniforms and naturalization papers from, when they first came to this country from Canada, my great grandmother. It was a very humbling experience because I've never seen any of that stuff. There was some questions answered about our ancestry as well. And so, I was on my motorcycle yesterday too, and I probably put, 250 miles on. And I did a lot of thinking while I was riding, like, man, all that shit. I'm 38 years old. And there's so many things that I didn't know and that were answered in that 2 hours of looking through, a small stack of paperwork. And it's just little discharge papers. And here's a little citation or award for this. And this is where my great grandfather, who was born in like 1896 or something like that, he was born in some little small shack in some shanty town way down south in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And my great grandmother came from Saskatchewan, I guess, and she was born on an iceberg or something. But it's just like it was very humbling. And so I get where my old man comes from when he talks about, don't ever forget where you came from, because there's a lot to be proud of. And I think that and to correlate that, I think that we as Americans, this country, we have a lot to be proud of. And we've went through thick and thin and hell and back to get to where we are today. And sometimes today is not a very bright place.
Right.
Not a very bright place to be. But don't forget where we came from, what we've done, what we've accomplished. Stu, you talk about September 12th,
right? And
how amazing it was to be an American on those days. And all that shit has been totally lost. So And then that got me thinking about the monuments that people are tearing down for Christ's sake. I mean, monuments are there for us to remember history so that we don't repeat it again, or repeat it again if it was a bright part of our history. So I don't know. I was feeling very nostalgic yesterday, and it was actually a pretty good feeling. So I want to thank my old man and my aunt for having, and she's going to put all that stuff in a box for me and let me have it. All the military stuff from our family, because nobody else in the family has been in the service.
You were sending me pictures of some of this stuff yesterday, and I was completely taken aback by it myself. And it's not even my family. I mean, you're like family to me. And, Aunt Shelley and your dad, I consider them family. Blood would not bring us closer together, put it that way.
Yeah.
And it gave me goosebumps. You know what I was thinking is, the hat that you showed me.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't fit me, by the way.
Right, but Johnson Jewelers could turn that pin into something awesome that you could wear around your neck, perhaps on your wrist. I mean, hey, they pay for a certain amount of stuff, and I'm giving them a little extra here. But no, I mean, seriously, you could have some of this stuff. You don't want to. Yeah, you're going to have a box, right, from Aunt Shelley. She's going to give you this box, and then what are you going to do with this box? I mean, you're going to just break it out every once in a while, show it to Devin. Don't forget where you came from. I think that's important, but maybe a shadow box at very minimum, or some sort of a display case where you can put this stuff, because I think we should be constantly reminded of where we came from. And it sounds very cliche, don't forget where you came from. I hear that from my dad all the time. And, I've heard it even from my mom several times. I think nostalgia is something that, you said that word. It was a very nostalgic day for you yesterday. And you know how like tastes and smells can bring you back to a place? Or, you drive by a place that you used to go through all the time. So when my parents were divorced when I was 2 years old, my dad was a commercial airline pilot, and he was based out of Texas. And I was living in the Twin Cities metropolitan area with my mother and my stepfather. Who, by the way, I love them both very much. My stepfather played an integral role in my life for 30 some years, 32, 33 years of my life, and had a hand in raising me, and the person that I've become today, he had a hand in that. I'm not going to deny that. He is not my biological father, thereby our relationship is not ever going to be the same, but... he was there. And so anyway, my dad quit being an airline pilot when I was 2 because he had a choice to make. It was, hey, go after this money. I mean, airline pilots, it's no secret that they get compensated quite generously. And he, at the time, was the captain of private jets for, I believe at that time he was flying for Burlington Northern, or it could have been for Riney Reinhardt at Gateway. It used to be Gateway Foods. It's now Reinhardt Foods. But Riney Reinhardt, the president of the board, the CEO, the director, blah, blah, whatever owner, I don't know what his title was, but Riney Reinhardt, my dad flew him around. And so I don't know if it was then or if it was the Burlington Northern days, which is a rail line, but they also have, obviously, their corporate bigwigs have to get flown around and shuffled from here to there, and the private jets was the way to travel. And so my dad flew them around. Well, his choice was to continue flying about the country and be stationed in Texas, or to quit his job and be a part of the upbringing of his kid, which was me. And he quit. And he moved back and bought a small place in Prescott, Wisconsin. And we used to oftentimes leave Prescott, Wisconsin, and go to, I believe it would be considered Newport, where the Polar Bear, the North Pole restaurant is.
Oh, yeah. Great breakfast.
That's what he said. And he would bring me there. And so for me, it was cool going there for a couple of reasons. One, because I was with my pops. And that was cool, because the divorce agreement was that I think I could see my dad every other weekend, and then there was a couple of days during the week, and then throughout the summer there was a couple of weeks that I could. But as I got older, and as my parents became a little bit more copacetic in their in their relationship, whatever, dealing with, it's hard co-parenting when you're in different homes, and because parents have animosity with one another and stuff like that. And not to get too far deep into that, because I want to talk about the positive stuff, but the North Pole restaurant, and I liked going there because I was with him, and because, they had good breakfast. I think they had some really thick French toast that I remember.
Yeah.
And their sausage was all like, it seemed like it was house ground and house made or whatever. And so I loved it. And they had cool little artifacts inside of there too, you know, fishing poles and, you know, rifles, I think, on the wall, and shotguns and different things like that. And it was just cool as a little kid to look around and see that stuff. But we were driving by there yesterday on the way to my son's out of town hockey practice. And it was the last day of hockey camp for him. And we drove by this place, and I told Marie, I said, God, we used to go there all the time when I was growing up. It's too bad that place is closed down. I said, you know, God, we should buy that place. And of course, I said all those things. Yeah, I mean, would I like to buy it? Sure, I would, because I'd like to see it come back. The problem comes with that it's in a really terrible location. And I just there's not a lot of traffic that goes by there in the frontage road. You would never make it. And in the restaurant business, you have to be there from bell to bell, literally from the time you open till the time you close, or somebody's ripping you off. And it doesn't just mean directly out of the till, but, you know, over serving, extra portions, you know, things like that. So the restaurant business, I've been there, I've done that. It's great. It's very rewarding. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of really great people, and it was good. Nothing official yet as far as updates. I'm just getting something here. Supposedly, some Trump campaign team members were door knocking with Lacey Johnson's team in North Minneapolis. That news story this morning about the teens shot is supposedly this incident. So it looks like there was door knocking by Trump and Lacey Johnson. Here is afternoon shooting leaves one dead, September 15th, 2020. On Monday afternoon at 4:27 p.m., Minneapolis police responded to a shot spotter activation in the area of the 3800 block of Fremont Avenue North. Officers arrived and located two individuals suffering from gunshot wounds. One of the individuals did not have a pulse or respirations. Officers began CPR and wound management until relieved by paramedics. Other officers dealt with the other injured party and scene security. A 17-year-old male victim was transported to North Memorial Hospital, where he died a short time later. The other victim, an adult male in his late teens, was transported to Hennepin County Medical Center with non-life-threatening wounds. Preliminary investigation yields that people were standing in front of a business when a person or persons approached on foot and shot at the group. The suspect fled the scene prior to the officer's arrival. So that story, according to our source, which is closely tied to the Trump campaign, is saying that these incidents are one of the same. Again, Trump campaign team members were door knocking with Lacey Johnson's team, who is a black conservative running against Ilhan Omar, who we spoke about in the first segment of today's show. This is developing. We don't know for sure that these are connected. If they are, Richard, this is going to be really something. But nostalgia, going back to what you were saying, I think you're right, is that what a lot of people do lose sight of is where they came from. And I don't think it's because parents like your dad are ineffective at parenting, or like mine are, or like you and I are. We try to, you know, it's really easy to get frustrated as a parent when you see your kids doing things that are not representative of the core values that you were raised with. And I find myself sounding more and more like my dad the older I get. It actually scares the shit out of me sometimes. Not because my dad's not a great person, but because it really reminds you of how old you're getting, and then how fast life goes. And you're only here once, and you imagine yourself being buried. And, you know, we drove another thing on our way back from hockey last night. We drove by some big, huge old folks home, and I asked Marie, "Is that where you're going to shove me when I can't wipe my own ass?" And, you know, She claims that I'll never be in a nursing home. We'll see about that.
Oh, yeah,
but
we'll see.
She claims that she's going to take care of me. But then also you have to think about the fact that your kids are going to be the ones that are charged with taking care of you. And then the bigger picture are going to be charged with running this country.
Yep.
Fighting for this country. Being a part of our policing in America, being a part of protecting our country from international terrorism, maybe as part of the military. God, I hope not. But, you know, if they choose to do that, you have to be proud of them. You have to support that because that's something to be incredibly proud of. But in today's world, that's a scary thought.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think where we have kind of derailed as a society is parenting, what happens in the homes, and my pops talks about this 1+1 plan they had when they were kids, and they'd be out. He grew up in the projects in Mount Airy, and they'd be out in the neighborhood doing their thing, and there were elders in the neighborhood. And so if you cut up and you were misbehaving and all this stuff, well, the 1+1 plan was that the elders, they take you and whoop your ass for, skipping rocks into their house or whatever it is, the stupid stuff that kids do. And then they walk you home. And by the time you got home, he said, somehow, magically, no cell phones, of course. I think all they had were rotary phones. My dad will be 65 this month. Then
Happy
your mom
birthday,
or
Rod.
dad, and your mom and dad gets to whooping your ass. And so one ass whooping plus one ass whooping equals two really bad ass whoopings and one sore ass. And so the point being that where is that kind of mentality gone? Not saying that you need to whoop your neighbor's kids, but
Although
holding them
sometimes-
accountable for their actions, even at a young age, and developing some kind of fear of authority. Not that you need to be super terrified, but a healthy fear, if that makes sense.
It does.
And he talks he was talking about this one old guy in the neighborhood, that if you were out in the neighborhood, and of course as a kid, when you're doing wrong, the difference from right from wrong. But this old guy, I forget what he said his name was, he would just be walking through the neighborhood strolling, almost like he was on patrol looking for kids that were messing up.
Right.
And he'd turn by the playground, and he said all you saw was elbows and assholes because everyone was running away from him. And so those are the types of things that we're missing.
Right.
These our kids, this millennial generation, man, just do what you want. I mean, come on. It's craziness, man.
There's something to be said about a healthy respect and a healthy fear for your father. And like you said, you don't need to necessarily whoop your kid's ass, okay? But sometimes you'd like to, and you said you're not suggesting that you just beat your neighbor's kids' asses either, but sometimes you'd like to. We live in a pretty decent neighborhood. As a matter of fact, my kids are probably the ones who would be getting their ass kicked by the neighbors, if anybody. But, you look at these situations and you get really frustrated. And it's easy to get really upset with your kids, no matter, because you care so much, because you're so deeply invested. Involved parents, especially... And no discounting mothers here because you do a terrific job. So don't get all, he's a sexist, he's a misogynist on me. But especially fathers get, I think, a little bit more emotionally involved when their sons in particular are acting in a way that is not representative of the way that we were raised. And I'm not saying that our dads had all the answers. Dave and Raj are great people. And by the way, happy birthday, Roger, a little bit early. We'll have to sing you a song here on PC Radio when we get to that day.
We'll have a White Claw for you.
No laws when you're drinking the claw. By the way, they don't pay us to say that. Nope. But you're right. There's something to be said about that healthy fear and that healthy respect. And I think that has been slowly removed from our society. And it's not just a respect for your dad or for your mom, but it is now transgressed into a disrespect, a blatant lack of respect, and even a disrespect towards any authority figures, including police officers, school teachers, coaches. I would have never mouthed off to my high school football coach.
No. Are you kidding?
I would have never... I mean, I made some smart-ass comments in class, but I would have never disrespected Miss Clark, Miss Laird. Yeah, I mean, just listen to those names. You know they were badasses, okay? I would have never disrespected them intentionally. And, maybe sometimes not listening or getting up and being a clown or moving around, being a distraction, that is inadvertently disrespectful. But I would have never said something or called my teacher a name. I mean, you got kids throwing chairs at teachers in class. You got kids in Chicago and in Minneapolis literally attacking their teachers and assaulting them in a mob-style assault in classrooms. This would have.
And then what happens when the teacher defends himself and knocks one of these little son of a bitches out? Then they're going to jail. They lose their teaching license and all this stuff. And in the meantime, they're defending themselves. And you know what? I agree. I agree that those teachers should be airing the place out. Start knocking them out if you have to, because that is complete bullshit. And that's how we get to where we're at today. And that's how the revolution is going to come. And it's going to be in the streets and in the schools and in churches and all kinds of shit. Man.
You start thinking about, I've often said that we're kind of at the apex or the tipping point of this civil conflict, this civil war. And I don't say that to scare people, because I don't want to reflect the mainstream media's scare tactics. I'm not a proponent of that, but there is a lot to be afraid of. And listen, you walk into school now to pick up your kid. Okay, and they're all wearing masks. That is very sad. It is. It's a sad state. And Marie was saying to me, well, it's not really sad to them. They don't care. As a matter of fact, they enjoy it. That might be true, but that's because that's all that they know. For example, it's Eli's first year of kindergarten, right? And he took last year off. He didn't go to daycare or preschool. Anyway, long story short, he's got friends that he's made in other daycare facilities and in preschool, and stuff like that. He didn't even realize until recess that there were 3 friends of his in his class because they're covered up.
Oh, wow.
Because nobody recognizes each other. And so it was only then where he was like, oh, Daddy, Catherine's in my class. I didn't know it till we were at recess, because then she took her mask off. But now I know who's wearing what mask, and I know who's who. Until they change their mask, and then, of course, you don't know.
So sad.
It is so sad. And I'll tell you this. Joe Biden has said that he's going to have, if he's elected, a national mask mandate. This guy.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. Years. When you think about it.
Here's what you should think about. Your freedoms and individual liberties will be under attack in a Biden presidency, because it's no secret that Kamala Harris is a far left radical progressive. And Joe Biden is being controlled by far left radical progressives like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Okay? This national mask mandate is going to happen. Everybody will be in a mask. And you want to know for how long? My prediction would be until there is a viable vaccine. And by viable vaccine, that would mean that that there cannot be one new diagnosed case of coronavirus or COVID-19 specifically out of every 100,000 people. And that's when they will. So every American will have to be vaccinated. And then on top of it, not one new case for every 100,000 people. And that is the benchmark that they're secretly going after here. It's almost unattainable. That's like saying that as long as people are getting the flu, as long as people are getting a common cold, as long as people are getting pneumonia, as long as people are getting whatever it is, that we're gonna have to mask up as a society. This is a way to dehumanize you. This is a way to separate you from your loved ones, from your friends, and to take the unity of our country and completely dismantle it, because divided we are not as strong as we are together. It is no secret that if you want freedom and if you want individual liberty, then you cannot vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, man, it's
incredibly,
a very frustrating topic.
It's very scary. It is very scary to know that this is happening right now, and we have a very short amount of time to make up our minds. And this violence in the streets and this chaos and this burning and these shootings like we're breaking here on PC radio are only going to continue to get more and more violent. Richard, I know you got to get out of here. Your final words of the day.
Learn your story, people. Learn where you came from. Celebrate it. Remember it. And don't forget.
Don't forget where you came from. Patriotically Correct Radio every single weekday, Monday through Friday, right here, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to download that OpsLens app. Be a part of the Truth Brigade. Remember, one day they're going to come for the car, and when they do, save the radio!
Their mamas always told them they'd never amount to anything.
You know what? I am going to ground you for 3 months.
Yeah, they were right.
Why doesn't anybody ever listen?
Stuart and Richard, PC Radio is on.